Okay. So the Gemara said we're trying to analyze at the beginning of the third parak Machlokes Reb Meir Chachamim whether or not the Balei Dinim have the ability to invalidate the Eidim, and the Gemara also had Legabe the Dayanim of the other litigant. So the Gemara originally wanted to suggest that the passeling was only referring to one aid, and then we had an entire shir what that meant, one aid, and regarding what. And the Gemara ends up rejecting that because the Gemara says, "Midiktani reisha dayana v'seifa eidav alma dafka ktani." It sounds like it's passeling two eidim, and it's not passeling only one aid. So how does the litigant have the ability to passel two eidim? So says the Gemara, it's by the Aleph of the Rambam, Amar Ablazer on Chav Gimel Mebeis, 10 lines down. Amar Ablazer bebahu va'achar lepaislan. He is coming and joining with another witness to passel the other eidim. That's why he has the ability to passel two eidim. So Gemara asks Akasha, that makes no sense. Kol kamine Nogea Beeidus. Again, he has a bias. He's a Nogea Beeidus. So why should he even have the ability to join with another aid to invalidate that witness, these witnesses? His eidus should not be accepted whatsoever, and he shouldn't even be granted the ability. How could Rabbi Meir say he has the ability to invalidate other witnesses if he's the litigant? So the Gemara says, no, it's talking about that he's Karel of Irer. Rashi says, what's Irer? He's Baldin Oimer Lefanenu Amahu Posel V'yesh Achar Imo Irer Shemetz Shelpsul. He's not. He's just raising doubts. He's bringing. He's not invalidating him totality, but rather he's bring a Shemetz Shelpsul. Fine. So the Gemara says, how does that help things? Irer Demai. What type of error? What type of shemetz? What type of invalidation? Even a taint of the invalidation. If it's an error, if it's a question of what that he's a gazlan, right? So the Gemara says. So then we're back to the original question. We're back to square one. So he's biased. He shouldn't believe that this other person's a gazlan. So the Gemara says what? Rather, it's what? It's error to begam mishpacha. He raises a psul that what? There's a begam mishpacha in this person's lineage. Rashi. Eved hu mi mishpachas eved shalei nishtachar ba upasal hu mi mishpachta. He comes and he says, by the way, this person's yichus is from mishpachas eved, and therefore, ultimately, he's coming from avodim. Rav Meir Savar, so listen to the Machlokes. How does it translate back into the Mishnah? Rav Meir Savar, Hani Amishpacha Kamasidi. Rav Meir says, what do you want from me? This guy, the litigant who has the bias, right? He says, I'm not being made against the aid. I'm being made about his great-grandmother. So I'm being made on the Mishpacha. So there's no problem for me to talk about the Mishpacha. V'iyu Mamela Kapasel. And he happens to be a descendant of that great-grandmother. Okay, I'm sorry. But I testified about something that was totally mutter. Rabbanan Savre, sof Nogea Beeidus. Rabbanan say, what type of, how could you passel him? It makes no sense. Therefore, the Rabbanan argue on the Mishnah with Rav Meir, and they say, at the end of the day, you're a Nogea Beeidus. So Rabbi say, I ask you a kasha number one for tonight's shir. How does Rav Meir get around what Rabbanan just said? Soif, Nogea Beeidus. It's a pasha claim. You have a case you're about to lose. There are witnesses up against you, right? And you're push it nailed, and it's like you just come up with a story that his grandmother is it's in order to serve your bias. It's Nogea Beeidus. So how does the Reb Meir disagree with that? So that's question number one. So Gemara continues. Before we get to that hezber, let's continue weiter a little bit in the Gemara. Kiyasa Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Dimi and B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan clarified a little bit. The machlokes of Rav Meir and Chachamim is not the way it presented it. It's not the way it seems. Machlokes b'shtei kitei edim. The machlekes is when there were two groups of Eidim. The Rab Meir savar tzarich levarer, v'Rabbanan savri ein tzrich levarer, ela bekat acha ein tzrich levarer. Aval bekas achas divrei hakol ein yachol lepulsla. So what happened over here? Rav Dimi says, by the way, I just want to explain something to you. Rab Meir and Chachamim do not have a disagreement if there's only one group of Eidim over here. Everyone would agree that if there's only one set of Eidim, you can't, even Rab Meir would agree you can't invalidate the Eidim, because that makes no sense. So what was the case? Case was that there were two groups of Eidim. Two groups of Eidim. And what's the machlekes? There's a few different gersos in the Gemara over here, but let's just explain simply the way Rashi presented it originally. There's a concept called tzarich levar. Guy walks into court, and he starts showing off, and he says, I don't only have two Eidim. I have two sets of Eidim. Okay? So now, Reb Meir holds, if you put your foot in your mouth, and you started showing off that you have a lot of proof, you better back up that proof. So Reb Meir holds al pidin, I'm mechuyev to bring everything that I claimed. So even though al pidin, right, everyone agrees, al pishnayim, the best proof in the world is two Eidim. Al pishnayim Eidim is the best. Ain't raya better than two Eidim. But because you were mechayev yourself, let's understand, tzarich levar. So you have to at least bring those two Eidim because you have to match up with what you said. Okay? So how does that translate back to whether or not the litigant can invalidate witnesses? So Rashi, at least in the first girsa, explains as follows. Rashi says, Rab Meir savr tzarich levar, Rabbanan savri ein tzarich levar. So therefore what? Since Rabbi Meir holds what? That if I hold that there are four witnesses, that there are two sets of witnesses, I actually have to back up my claim, and I have to bring the other Eidim. So Rashi in the first explanation explains, that's why. So since he has to bring the other sets of witnesses anyways, so it's not going to be Nogea Beeidus because he's going to have two sets of Eidim anyways. He claims he has two sets of Eidim, but Rabbanan will hold what? He could show off as much as he wants. Two Eidim are as strong as anything, and ain't tzarich levar. So according to Rabbanan, that's why they hold in our Mishnah that you can't invalidate the original witnesses since they hold ain't tzarich levar. So he doesn't have to get the other two witnesses. So now you're only invalidating the only two witnesses that he has. That's Nogea Beeidus. So that's the Gemara. That's at least the way Rashi originally explains the Gemara. Aval bakat achas, but everyone holds when it's one set of Eidim, everyone would agree that you would never be able to invalidate because, like we said, that's simply Nogea Beeidus. So the Gemara says, Amru lefanav Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. Rav Ami and Rav Asi said in front of Rav Dimi, Ein sham ela kat achas mahu. What happens if there's only one kat? There's only one group of Eidim. So, didn't we just say, if there's only one group of Eidim, everyone would hold it. That's Nogea Beeidus. We only said that their machlekes was by tzarich levar, where there's shnei k'dita Eidim. So the Gemara asked that. Ein sham ela kat achat v'amrit aval kat achas divrei kol ein yachol lefoslan. We just said that. One group of Eidim, everyone agrees. Even Rabbi Meir is in agreement that you can't invalidate them. Ella, so the Gemara says, no, you misunderstood what our kasha was. Listen to the case. Nimtzeis kat shnia kroivin opsulin. Mahu. What happens in the following? You had two groups of Eidim, right, which according to Rabbi Meir would tell us what? That since tzarich levara, you have the ability to invalidate because you're always going to have a backup set of Eidim. What happens if the second set of Eidim turn out to have their own set of psulim and they fall by the wayside? Will Rabbi Meir concede and say in such a situation, no, that's Nogea Beeidus? Or will Rabbi Meir says, no, that's not a problem because at the time that wasn't problematic. So, excellent. So listen to what the Gemara says. Let's read the Gemara. So what does Gemara paskin? Mahu. So it's right before the wide lines. Amr lahen kvaroi idu edu harishain. Amr lahen kvar heidu edim harishain. What in the world does that phrase mean? Amr lahem, he says, the answer is kvar heidu edim harishain. What do you say, Jerome?
Accept the testimony.
So you accepted the testimony. Whose testimony? Which kat Arishonim?
Who is, it's assumingly...
Who's your understanding? You understood that Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim, that they were already testified, meaning the first kat. So therefore, you are accepting the invalidation of Rameh, or you're not accepting the invalidation of Rameh? Can
you read it both ways?
Yeah, you can. Look at Rashi. Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim. You see where the Rashi is? The second Rashi in the wide lines. It's like 9 lines down. Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim. Everyone with me? Kishenimtses kat shnia psula. When that second kat that we were always relying on because of tzarech levar, right? Oh, it turned out there was evidence that they're gazlanim, whatever, right? Nothing to do with our case. Kvar neskabla bekashrus eduson she'elu hameidin ala psul va'adayin lo haya Nogea Beeidus ume'achar sheneskablu behechsher ne'emonim lifsol as harishonim. What does Rashi just say? Who's kvar heidu edu harishonim? At the time when Rabbi Meir said, I, the litigant, and this other guy have the ability to invalidate the first kat. Why did I have the ability? Why? Because Rabbi Meir holds tzarech levar. There has to be another kat, right? Turns out, a few days later, the second kat turned to be what? Edom psulim. So now, limafreya, you want to say what? We shouldn't accept your invalidation of the first kat, because that's all we have to rely on, right? Says the Gemara, Kvari Idu Edu Arishonim. Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim means you accept the edus that I testified to invalidate the first kat, and Eina Chanami, it still works. The invalidation process. That's Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim. Lishna Achrina. Then Rashi has a sec. What? This is within Rabbi. This is the Gemara's suffix within Rabbi Meir. Yeah. Lishna Achrina. According to Rabbanon, we wouldn't even have a suffix. Yeah. Lishna Achrina. Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim kat harishoina sheidu beidusem shel balei dinin. The Edom that have testimony that I want to invalidate. Umehemne the kaven the shnia psula. Since it turns out that the second kat was pasul. Sulo mifsali kamai. So now the invalidation doesn't work for the first set of Edom. Why? Da'avale Nogea Beeidus. Because it's Nogea Beeidus. So you have a vague line in the Gemara, Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim, and Rashi has two unbelievable lishnas. Is it what? Is it saying that my invalidation works? Because that's Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim? Or is it saying, Pum Fakert, the opposite? Kvari Idu Edom Arishonim, therefore don't touch them because you're a Nogea Beeidus. What's the two lishnas about? What's the machlekes? So Rabbi say that's the second question. Yeah.
From a tzarech levar perspective, you would think that they would need to validate both of them.
You're asking an independent question. When I say tzarech levar, the line, what the Gemara, does that mean tzarech levar that both have to be kosher?
Right.
So Rashi argues what you said. Rashi thinks the gears of. So I could argue with you in defense of the first lishna. Tzarech levar just means, honestly, in terms of evidence, we don't need this to rely on. We just want to know, are you a liar? I mean, produce the facts. You claim there's a lot of people that actually know about this. So even if we can't rely on it in terms of Bezdin Psak, but like, back up your claim. Present all these people that are, so it could be that even Edom Psulim, one could argue, in terms of my claim and whether or not I'm just trying to like boast over here and I have nothing to back it up. So even Edom Sulam might help in that. It's not that the tzarech levar is actually giving a better birur and a get right. It's just back up what you said. If you say something, so you better have someone to back up with. But what's this machlekes about whether or not, like Jerome said and presented earlier, can you become a Nogea Beeidus limafreya? The second lishna of Rashi is saying, at the time that you were made, limafreya, now we realize the second Edom, so now you're Nogea. So what does the other lishna say? Clearly against that. You can't become a Nogea limafreya.
It seems to go against the whole, at least I assume there's going to be another way to understand it, but Nogea Beeidus, if you're biased towards the whole thing if you didn't even know that what you
Oh,
said.
excellent, excellent. So what is the Nekudas HaMachlekes? Two Lishnas and Rashi, which ultimately which we think is basically totally on the following issue. If you're a Nogea Beeidus, not at the time that you give the Eidus. You're a Nogea Beeidus post facto limafreya. So would that be considered a Nogea Beeidus or not? That's our question. Keep in the back burner the original question that we asked in the Gemara. What was the machlekes in the beginning of Rav Meir Rabbanan to be made about a person's grandmother, that Rav Meir held that a person's grandmother is not considered being made, because I'm made on the grandmother, I'm not great on the person. And Rabbanan argued very, very understandably, you're a Nogea, sof, Nogea Be'edusu. What's that Nekudas HaMachlekes? Yeah.
When is the timing of his Eidus when he's Nogea? Because if you say it's Lomafreya, he already gave his Eidus.
Right, so at the time I wasn't a Nogea because there was a second set of Eidim.
So if that Eidus was already Miskabel when he wasn't Nogea,
So can you
should
kick...
then say that the Eidus has to be like existing like forever to say Lomafreya that it's not? I mean, it was already accepted.
It's accepted. The Eidim was accepted. Now,
It still must be continued.
again, I invalidated them. Now I invalidated. But at the time that I invalidated, the Gemara wanted to say, I wasn't a Nogea. I didn't have a Psul Nogea. Right? Why? Because there were another set of Eidim over there. Now, post facto, things happened in the world, and that invalidated the second set. And it turns out that when I gave Eidus about this other set, I was actually a Nogea. Does it kick in or does it not kick in?
But we never know if another set of Eidus is
Right. It's only relevant once this happens. It turns out that the other set of Eidim became Psulim. So now, when I invalidated the first set, it turns out, even though we thought you weren't Nogea, now it turns out, Lamafreya, that you're Nogea. Is that a Psul Nogea or not? So let me ask you the following, Shiloh.
If you were to say that, let's say that there's some deeper psul that it could work on Freya, then I don't know what case off the top of my head, but you could have things hanging in the balance forever.
You're right. You're right. You're right, 100%. Things can change, right?
And I mean, could this, yeah.
You're saying even outside of cases with two sets of Eidim, you're saying what happens if you gave Eidus and it turns out that
At some point, the basin has to give up sock.
I mean, usually when you're talking about a case, right? If you had a partnership or you had what to gain, so then and you were Nogea, so then if that comes out later, then we'll invalidate it. You can't if you become a partner later, right? That's going to be Mikana Lahaba. That's not going to. But at the time, if we see you had biased interest, so then that would be a problem. So, Rabbi say, I want to ask a following question: what happens if I want to give Eidus in a case that relates to me, but I want to give it to my detriment? What's the din?
Is that Nafshi Chatich L'Yisra?
No. Nafshi Chatich L'Yisra. Adam Eiser. A person has the ability to aser himself. Chatich L'Yisra. Shavia Nafshi Chatich L'Yisra means in the world of Isser v'Heter, I have the ability to say this piece of meat is treif. First of all, that has no relevance for anyone else in the world. It's only something that relates to me, and it doesn't have a din of Eidus. Right? So I have the ability, just like I have the ability, according to the Ktsilsis Choshen, the way you understand Shavia Chatich L'Yisra is just like you could take a neder, so you can aser this piece of meat on yourself. Okay, you want to do that, Gesundheit hate. You have that ability to do that. You can create parshias in the Torah that relate to you yourself, but you don't have the ability to obligate other people based on your statements.
to make himself a Russia.
What?
You're giving Eidus against yourself.
No, you're not giving Eidus to make yourself a Russia. You're giving Eidus, let's say like this.
That it costs you money.
Yeah, exactly. I have a court case with you, and I say I want to give Eidus, and I think Jerome's right, and I'm gonna have to pay now $100,000.
Depending on how you view.
So what do you mean?
Yeah.
So you're a Nogea.
Yes.
So yeah, but I'm Nogea, but I'm not using my Negias. So here's the question.
If it passes you as an aid, then it would still be.
Oh, excellent. So if you look in the Choshen Mishmar and Siman Lamed Zayin right here, the Shach in the first Shach and Siman Lamed Zayin, he quotes. If you see the first line, he quotes from the Ir Shushan. The Ir Shushan is the Levush, right? So Levush said, and this is a tremendous debate in the postcom. I'm just going to quote you some of the names: the Nesivos, the Tumim, and the Ktsois, they all debate this issue on whether or not a Nogea has the ability to testify to his detriment. What is that based on? Let's just sum it up. What is the Psul Nogea based on? If you say, like Mark says, that Nogea is what we'll call a Baldover, he's like a Karov. He's one of the active parties. So an active party can't be an aid. He's a puzzle aid. That's just, I don't care which way you look at it, he's a puzzle aid. So that's something that's going to be invalid, whether or not it's to his detriment or whether or not it's going to be to his benefit. But the Shach disagrees with the Yershusha. And we'll see in a second, this is a Machlokus Rishonim of Baba Basra. The Chash says it's not true. In aid, that's Nogea Beeidus, our Psul and our Gemara, is all based on what? Chash Meshaker. I am worried that if you're Nogea, you're going to lie. By definition, many poskim hold that what? That only exists if it's to my benefit. I'm never going to lie for my detriment. Nogea Be'edus isn't really a psul. It's not like a karev. It's just that you technically can't give edus when we can't believe you're edus because you're a chash meshaker. What's the case? There's a Gemara in Baba Basra on Daf Mem Daled and Aleph. And the Gemara is quoted here in the Shach. You see in the parentheses, Baba Basra Mem Daled and Aleph, Yermas Kedei Abaye, right? Makshana Oilam. The Rishonim all ask a kasha. Al Milsa de Shmuel. The Omer Shema Amida Befnei Bal Chovo. Let me give you a little background to what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara talks about the following case. There's a sale. There was a sale on property. Okay? A sale on property, and now there's a question: what happened with the sale? The Gemara says, can the seller testify about the case? Now the Gemara puts in a stipulation. It was a sale beloy achrayis, which means what? Which means no one's coming after me. Okay? So there's no achrayis, so I don't have anything to lose in terms of the world of achrayis. So the Gemara says, Afal Pichin, even though the mechira was done below achrayis, Shmuel said, Ein hamoicher meir. Why? Mipnei shema'amido eitzel bal chovo. Because he's going to give testimony to enable what? His bal chov to be able to get the karka. Why would he want that? So the Gemara explains, because there's a klal, loiva rasha v'lo yishalem. A loiva, a borrower that doesn't pay, is considered a rasha, the pasuk says. So he doesn't want to be considered a rasha. So therefore he wants his balei chovos to have access to this field, and therefore he's going to testify in a certain way. So the Rishonim say, one second, this guy cares about being calling a rasha? If he cares about being calling a rasha, so then what? He's not going to want to give Eid Sheker either. So why are we not allowing him to testify? So that's the Rishonim kasha in the Sugya and Baba Basra. Doesn't make sense. Just because of Leiva Rasha L'Yishayim, he has no monetary benefit over here. He doesn't want to be called a Rasha. That's why he's going to be mamid the case to be accessible to the Baal Chova. So he also doesn't want to be a Shakran and violate this Isser. So the Rishonim all work on that kasha. The Rishonim give two answers. One answer the Rishonim is, no, it's just because he's not allowed to be made. He's a Baldavar. The other answer the Rishonim, the Rimagash gives, is what? Is that since in the public eye, we're going to talk about what? Leiva Rasha v'lo Yishalim. He has more of a negias to be considered a Rasha legabi not paying his chovos, and he'd rather protect himself from that rumor than something you're not even going to find out about, the fact that he lies in court about this case. So which means the Rimagash said the other pshat in the Rishonim is insufficient. The psul of Nogea Be'edus is not because of Baldover, but rather it's because there has to be some chash sheker, which is ultimately going to be our question on whether or not a Nogea Be'edus has the ability to testify to his detriment. But ultimately this is going to have other implications. There is a question of the Mishnah Melech. The Mishnah Melech raises the following question. What happens? We know the din is that an aid that's a puzzle, and he's in a kat, and he's in a group, so nimtzech echad me'em karva puzzle, one of the aidim comes out to be a psul, so the whole kat falls apart. Nimtzech and karva puzzle, nimtzeh edusam b'teila. So ask the Mishnah Melech, what happens if one of the aidim turn out to be Nogea? Would you say that now invalidates the whole kat? Or would you say that no, that he has a problem, but that doesn't affect it? So it could be the Steipler thinks that should affect our Shaila. If you understand that a Nogea Be'edus is actually a puzzle aid, so perhaps one could argue that, yeah, that would be a reason to invalidate. But if you understand that that is just a chash meshaker, so that is not necessarily going to be a reason why you're going to invalidate. So there are a few different sugyas that are affected by our discussion of how to understand Nogea Be'edus. But what's fascinating is that Lamaisa, it comes out of our Gemara. Again, we had a discussion. Tzarech levar. Meir holds you have to bring 2 sets of Eidim if you claim that there are more Eidim to discuss your issue. So the Gemara wants to know what happens if one of those sets of Eidim, right, the second set of Eidim that you were relying on, and therefore Meir allowed you to invalidate the first set, turns out to be psulim. So the Gemara says a vague line. So Rashi has 2 languages. Rashi has 2 lishnos. Whether or not that means we accept your invalidation, or no, it means the opposite. We don't accept your invalidation. It means we accept the edus of the Rishonim, and you can invalidate those edim because what? Nimtza that you're Nogea l'mafreya. Why should one say that I should or should not be a Nogea l'mafreya, Rabosai?
Even if you say chashash sheker, though, can you be chashash sheker?
One second, let's first say it out. What would be the possibility to explain these 2 Lishonos in Rashi? Right. I think if you understand that all Nogea Be'edus is chashash sheker, and you would take the approach that my detriment, I'm believed even in a situation where I'm Nogea Be'edus. So perhaps one could say, if at the time when you invalidated them, you didn't have a negius and you were impartial, so then we accept your invalidation. Things turned out that you had needed to rely on those edim and now they're nullified. Doesn't matter. But lamaisi, you accept my edus, and the psul of Nogea Be'edus is not a problem. But if there's an objective psul, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dependent on my chash sheker and what my gains are, but even to your detriment, we would invalidate a Nogea Be'edus. So perhaps that's the other pshat in Rashi. If whatever happens, we have certain evidence that come out afterwards, that it turns out this edus were necessary because what? Everyone agrees, like the Gemara said, if you only had kadachas, even Rabbi Meir would agree that you can't nullify those edim. We're only talking about a situation where there's shteikite edim. So if it's kat achas, you're not allowed to. So since it turned out that the second group of edim that we were relying on were, to me, retroactively, and perhaps, suggests the Steipler, that is exactly the nekudas hamachloikes between the 2 lishnas and Rashi of how to read this line of the Gemara of kvar idus arishonim. Do we accept your invalidation according to Meir, or do we not accept your invalidation according to Meir? Can the psul Nogea kick in lemafreya might be connected to all those different shitas and that entire machlokes rishonim, whether or not Nogea is neman to his detriment, whether or not you're going to say nimtzach and karvu puzzle, all those shilas, and ultimately this based on what the psul Nogea, if you hold like the levush, that it's based on baldavar, or if you hold like the shach, that it's based on chashash sheker.
Why can't you say that he's still chashash sheker even if he's not Nogea, because he just wants to mess the second kat up?
Again,
The
first kat, you mean?
Even if there is no psul.
Again, well, let's just go through the case. The Gemara says that you have 2 sets of edim.
Yeah.
Turns out you invalidated the first set because you thought that there was a second set because we held tzarech levar.
And nothing happens to the second set. But maybe you just wanted to invalidate because you're upset and you just have, you don't like the guy. You're involved and you just want to mess up one of his cuts.
Yeah, but the Gemara is assuming that since that has no effect on the case, so we can't give you a psul then, according to Meir. It's only once that it's affecting the case that now you're Nogea.
So then is a chash sheker only derived once you have a nogea?
Yeah.
And if you had some other chash sheker, we wouldn't care about it?
Nogea is only derived if you only have a chash sheker. It's the opposite. Nogea is possible because of chash sheker.
But I'm saying theoretically.
So sheker is only when there's a nafkamina, yeah. Right, that's what we're saying.
So I'm saying
To the detriment, you're believed.
Right, I mean, but you could.
So also
have
something
chash
parav.
sheker.
Something parav. If there's no chash sheker, it's parav. It's not to the detriment. It's only for your benefit. That's what chash sheker is based on.
Right. But I guess what I was just trying to say is that therefore chash sheker needs to somehow emanate from the fact that you're nogea. I mean, that like they need to go together at the same time.
Right, but we don't know what nogea. Right, yeah, 100%, correct. That's that. The Gemara says it's because you're a nogea. So now, why is nogea apostle? Either it's because it's a definite psul, it's an objective psul, or it's because at that point in time you have something to gain, and therefore there's a chash sheker. That's why we can't believe you. But you're not technically. There's no problem in hilchos eidus. Meaning, I want to know fundamentally when we talk about an aid, is an aid the antithesis of a nogea? That's not an aid. That's a psul bal davar, or no? You could be an aid even though you're a nogea b'davar, but what? We just can't believe you in certain directions because what? Because we might think you're lying. So you're an aid. That's meshaker. That's a tremendous distinction within the approaches. There's a fascinating sugya Bava Basra in the daf before the sugya Bava Basra in daf mem gimel that the Gemara talks about a shul. Gemara says a shul that had a Sefer Torah that was stolen from them. So the Gemara said there were two guys that knew about the story that were members of the shul. So the Gemara says they can't be made because they're nogea. So the Gemara says, "V'lisliku beitrei." Let them give up their membership for the shul, and then they could be made. So all the Rishonim asked the kasha there. I don't understand. There's a din, there's a halacha, there's a Gemara later on in Bava Basra on Daf Kuf Chal Chesam Beis. The Gemara says that by eidus, it's not enough to be a kosher aid when you actually testify. You need tchilaso v'sofo b'kashrus, which means I had to be a kosher aid at the time of the re'iyas hamaisa also. So you need to be in the entire time a aid kosher tchilaso v'sofo b'kashrus. So Taisus there, the Rishonim all asked the kasha, how could you remove your membership? At the time of the Geneva, you had a psul. So some of the Rishonim say, yeah, you're right. Tchilas of V'sova B'kashrus doesn't apply to something that it's not a psul guf. It's not like a ganav or something that it's a real bona fide psul. It's just a psul nogea. That's not a problem. Tchilas of V'sova B'kashrus. Other Rishonim say, no, over here, you would apply Tchilas B'sofa B'kashrus, but it's different because Baldavar is the antithesis of what an aid is. That's not an aid with a shame psul. It's just you were never an aid. You're nothing because you're a Baldavar. So therefore, it is considered Tchilas B'sofa B'kashrus. That's what some of the Rishonim suggest. So it could be the Stipler actually suggests this in the piece over here on the other side. If you see in the second column, the second paragraph, V'shnei adrachim muvur b'shita megbetzes Bava Basra b'daf mem gimel b'shem Rashba. B'had muvur hasan demahani b'nogea be'edus siluk. The guys who are nogea members in the shul, they can remove themselves from the membership. Kashad al ba'inam be'edim tchilas v'sov v'kashus. The b'teritz arishan kasab b'shem Aravid. T'chiba'inan shelo yeh tchilas v'paslos. Hani mi l'psul guf o psul kurva avahacham yichchum chshadahu v'chimasalig negiyus anemon. What's the first answer saying? This is not a psul guf. Why is it not a psul guf? It's nogea. What's nogea? Nogea is a chash mashakir. That's not like a puzzle aid. That's just, you're an aid. But what? You have nogea, so we can't believe you for your aidus in terms of that. Right? Very similar to the post-kim that we'll hold, that will paskin lalacha. If it's to your detriment, you are believed because you're an aid. It's not removing your whole shame aidus, passing you from your shame aidus. Whereas the other, V'loshan Acha, the other Rishonim say, the Gabe Mammon lo mikri tchilas of psul, the Kaven the Mati le'ano lav bar eidus uklal. He's not an aid at all. He's a baldover. V'ashta basan is telling me to do so. Who dechal le shame aid. So they told what? No, your shame aid only begins when when you remove your negias, and that's tchilas of v'sofa b'kashus, because you were never an aid when you're a baldover. That's these two sides of the coin over here. What is the psul of a Nogea? Is Nogea an aid with a problem that we can't accept it because you're chash sheker, or no, you're a baldover and therefore you're never even aid. In our situation where we hold you're even puzzle for your detriment. But in the sugya, in the issue of tchilas of v'sofa b'kashus, we could say ignore the original situation because he was never an aid, because he had such a psul of being even a baldover, and his shame aid only starts later, and that in that situation they hold that that's tchilas of v'sofa b'kashus when you entered into the realm of aidus. But that fundamentally gets to the point that we were discussing, whether or not this is going to be the psul of baldover, whether or not it's going to be a psul of chash shaker, is whether or not you're even in the parsha of discussing if you're an aid, if you have negiah be'edus. It's a fascinating issue. What intuitively we think is the most puzzle type of aid, because you have a bias. You're not a witness. A witness, by definition, is someone who doesn't have a bias. Is nothing to gain, so that is not necessarily so clear. Is it a stira to the concept of edus to have a bias, or is it that it's not a stira, it's not a contradiction, but we just technically can't accept you in certain scenarios where we think you might be lying, but you could really have a shame aid for the parsha of edus, even if we're not going to accept your edus. It's a fascinating conceptual idea. Whether or not a person with a partial bias, would that necessarily be considered? And then it turns out, happens to be an afkamina, the fact that I say he's a gazlan, and I continue to say that he's a gazlan when it affects me. What a ganaf, yeah. So the Gos Hashri has a suffix whether or not that would be considered Nogea Beeidus. What's the suffix based on? At the time I said it. It's not chash b'shakar. I've been saying it for years. I had nothing to gain.
You can say what you want. You have to have proof.
Well, that Rameir apparently holds not. Rameir holds bahu va'acher poslo, and Chachamim say we're only going to accept this if this is proven, or if there are other eidim. But you have no way of it. Rameir holds as long as I have another aid that will back me up, I can invalidate your witnesses, the litigant that's testifying against me. So perhaps with this, based on this very issue. If you were saying it for years, it's not chash sheker, because you've been saying it even before there was a bias over here. But if you hold, how can you accept this from me? At the end of the day, it's a psul, it's a baldover. Right now, I can't accept that edus. I don't care how long you've been saying it. It's not a chash sheker issue. It's invalid edus because you're a baldover. So perhaps that is exactly the suffix of the Hagos Hashri in such a scenario. Let's just finish the sugya of Nogea Beeidus, and let's plug it into the original Gemara. Again, the Gemara opened up and says, no, you misunderstood the machlokes Reb Meir Chacham. What's the machlokes Reb Meir Chachamim? Whether or not the aid can be, that the litigant himself can join with another aid and passel. The Gemara says, passel? What type of psul is he saying? The Gemara says, he's not giving a direct psul. He's giving a pgam mishpacha. He's saying that his great-grandmother was an eved, and therefore, ultimately, that invalidates his testimony. Says the Rabbanon, right? Says the Gemara, let's read the Gemara again. Meir Savar, Hani Amishpacha Kamasidi. When you look at it, what I'm being made on, what am I being made on? I'm not being made on him. I'm being made on the Goldstein Mishpacha, on the great Bubba. That's who I'm being made. That's what my edus is about. Zakter Rebara back, Rabbanan Sabri. What? Soif Nogea Be'edusu. Perhaps, even at the get-go of the Gemara. Perhaps just a way to understand the Havamim of the Gemara, perhaps could be dependent on our Chakira. If you understand there's a Chash B'Shakir, so that's what Rabbanan's saying. Who cares what you're being made on? So you're right. Your direct edus has nothing to do with this person, and it happens to be totally indirect, the fact that it's effective. But at the end of the day, the reason why you're doing it indirect is because what? You have what to gain. There's a Chash B'Shakir over here. Like the opinion of the Shach, that the Psul Nogea is based on. And that's exactly the lashon of the Gemara. Soif Nogea Be'eidus here. Soif, you have what to gain over here. Soif, you're chash b'shakir. But Rameir says what? Look at the edus. What I'm being made about. Is there a psul Nogea, which is a defined psul? Just like a karov is very definitive to the people that he's being made on, so too am I puzzle in this edus. Who am I being made on? I'm being made on the bubby. I'm not being made on. I don't look so. It's not about here. It's interesting. Here, the idea of baldover, the idea of being someone who's connected to the case objectively, to be an objective psul, and not to be a chash of lying, what is going to be a kula? Because if I'm being made about someone else, that I'm what? I'm totally not a baldover about. I could be made about other edises. This case, I happen to have Negias with the great-great-great-great-grandson. But I want to testify about the genealogy of the whole Goldstein family. So, I'm not a Nogea there. I'm not a baldover there. I'm not involved with that case. So, that would be a kula that, according to Remeir, perhaps that's why he didn't think that this was a psul baldover. Perhaps the original analysis of the Gemara, that perhaps by Pgam Mishpacha, how did Remeir retort to Rabbanon that this wouldn't be a Nogea Beeidus? It's only a soif Nogea Beeidus if you understand, like the Shach, that the nature of Nogea Beeidus is Achshash Meshaker. So therefore we have to look at what comes out of your Eidus, and ultimately that's going to affect your case. But if you take it as a very defined psul, as a baldover, what I'm being made about, am I a party that's involved? Would I be like a karov to that case? So then that wouldn't necessarily be a psul, and therefore you would accept his Eidus in the situation of Reb Meir. But l'chayra, I think from the Lashonos of Rashi, which affects whether or not, according to Reb Meir, we would accept the invalidation originally, I think that depends on this machlokes haposkim, and it's a real machlokes haposkim, whether or not a Nogea has the ability to testify to his own detriment would be tali on this very chakira. That's a major machlokes rishonim in a few sugyas in Bava Basra.
Use a similar spot by road.
That what?
Where